Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a financial milestone that honestly feels like pushing a giant boulder up a mountain. Your very first $100,000. Why does it take so agonizingly long to reach? And more importantly, how can we use hard data and simple math to actually speed the whole thing up? Let's get right into it.
So it's basically the literal $100,000 question, right? Why does that first 100K feel like it takes an absolute lifetime, but the next 100K just kind of seems to happen on autopilot? Well, we're going to figure out what's really going on behind the scenes here.
Billionaire investor Charlie Munger famously didn't sugarcoat this at all. He said, the first $100,000 is a bitch, but you gotta do it. And honestly, he's spot on. It's a universal grind, and it's something that's acknowledged by some of the most successful investors on the planet. All right, section 1. Why 0 to 100K hurts. The two massive hurdles.
When you're starting from absolute zero, you're immediately facing two massive structural disadvantages. First up, starting out. Early career wages are, notoriously low. Finding any extra money, a surplus, is incredibly hard at this stage. And second, there's no market leverage. Essentially, every single dollar you earn has to come entirely from your own sweat, because you just don't have any capital working for you in the market yet.
Because of that, you're missing out on what is basically the ultimate wealth cheat code: compound interest. When you've got a solid portfolio, gravity just kind of does the heavy lifting for you, and your money literally makes more money year after year. But at zero, you're the one stuck pushing the snowball.
Moving on to section 2, speeding up your savings, the math of wealth.
Now, if you actually want to reach that $100,000 faster, your absolute number one focus has to be on maximizing your savings rate. It's a super simple equation. It's your total savings divided by your total income. Basically, it's the surplus between what you earn and what you spend. Look, it doesn't matter if you make $1 million a year if you're spending $1,001, right? Your wealth is entirely dependent on the size of this exact surplus. Let's picture two people for a second. Person A is pulling in a very solid $80,000 a year, but they only save about $5,000 of it. Person B earns significantly less, say $50,000 a year, but they actually manage to save $10,000. So despite person A earning way more on paper, person B is going to hit that $100,000 mark far faster. Why? Because they've engineered a vastly superior savings rate. So how do we actually increase that surplus? Well, cutting the extra fat from your budget, like, skipping expensive dinners or working from home to save on lunch and commuting, that's definitely the quickest daily fix. But raising your income is by far the most efficient long-term strategy. The reality is, you can only cut expenses so low before you literally starve. Frugality has a hard floor, but your earning potential, that has absolutely no ceiling. Okay, so how do we boost that income in the real world? Our playbook gives us 6 clear paths to follow here. It could be gaining an in-demand freelance skill like video editing or copywriting. You could advance at your current job, chase those annual bonuses, or take on a part-time gig. You might even start a secondary weekend business or learn how to flip items online. The specific method matters a whole lot less than the math itself. You just have to drive that income up.
Let's hit section 3, the cost of lifestyle creep. 2 traps to avoid.
Even if you successfully hustle and bump up your income, there are these silent killers just waiting to completely derail your progress. The first one, lifestyle creep. This is what happens when you get a raise and then you immediately upgrade your life to match it. A nicer car, fancier dinners, your spending just rises identically right along with your new income. When that happens, your savings rate stays completely flat and you essentially destroy your ability to invest that new surplus. The second massive trap is leaving your hard-earned surplus just decaying in a traditional bank account. Look at it this way. Saving $10,000 a year in a standard low-interest bank takes a full, agonizing decade to reach $100,000. But if you invest that exact same $10,000 annually at a 10% return, you drastically shrink that timeline. Seriously, if you aren't investing, you're taking the hardest possible path.
Which brings us to section 4, investing your first 100K, the blueprint. So what actually happens when you finally cross that magical 6-figure threshold? Well, now you have real leverage. Our sources suggest a highly disciplined split to protect this newfound wealth. It involves dedicating 90% of your capital to safe, broad index funds and carving out just 10% for riskier, higher reward ventures. You've worked way too hard to get here to just gamble it all away.
Now, if you decide to diversify and maybe deploy some of that capital into real estate, there are some pretty strict rules to follow. You could buy, wait, and flip a property for profit, or you could rent it out. But listen, if you rent, you absolutely must rigorously run the numbers to ensure that the rental income doesn't just cover the monthly loan. It has to leave a healthy surplus to cover those inevitable repairs and maintenance. If it doesn't, your new asset quickly just becomes a liability.
Ultimately, the roadmap to securing and managing that first 100K starts incredibly small. Our sources actually suggest starting to invest with even just $500. The dollar amount really doesn't matter initially. It relies entirely on building bulletproof, disciplined habits way before you have real money to manage. You build the habit, you protect your wealth from massive losses and luxury spending, and then, and only then, you diversify to multiply your capital.
Oh, and it's also absolutely crucial to remember that your geography heavily dictates your cost of living and the true weight of your financial milestones. I mean, having $100,000 saved up in New York City is a wildly different reality than saving $50,000 in parts of Eastern Europe or South America. You really have to contextualize your goals based on your living environment and your personal projected timeline. Wealth is completely relative to your expenses. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to take a really hard look at your own budget today. Are you actively engineering a surplus to buy your future freedom? Or is lifestyle creep quietly stealing your first $100,000 right out from under you? The math is undeniable, but the choice of which path to take starting tomorrow morning, well, that's entirely yours. Thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you next time.